meeting, and the government spokesperson, Felix Ofusquachi, did address the press after that, and among other things that he disclosed relative to the resolutions that were passed at the cabinet meeting, the measures that were outlined. Let me just read some of them. One is that the Ministry of Finance and Energy directed by the cabinet to ensure a reduction in fuel price in the next pricing window through the suspension of some taxes and margins, and the said taxes and margins to be announced at next pricing window. We understand that it take effect sometime 16th of April. And then we hear that that is expected to last for 4 weeks and is subject to review based on evolving situation in the Middle East conflict and movement in crude oil prices. Then number 2, it says Minister for Transport has been directed to ensure expedited deployment of recently acquired 100 Metro mass transit buses in addition to existing ones on high traffic corridors, and ensure maintenance of lower transport fares on those buses than what private operators charge. So for the public transport, we're going to see a reduction in their fare. Then all ministers and senior government appointees are to adhere strictly to President's directive on the cancellation of fuel allocations and allowance. That was a directive was given in 2025, and the President is reiterating that must ensure adherence to that. Well, let's come to the studio now, and let me start with you, Derek. This is what government has done to try and mitigate the impacts of the Middle East crisis. Reduction in the tax relative to the fuel, a reduction in the fares for all public transport, and also an enforcement of a directive on fuel coupons. As the opposition, are you satisfied or you want more?
A very good morning to your good self and then your viewers out there. I was thinking that since we had a government spokesperson here, he would have probably introduced the directives of government and then speak to the matter. But anyway, when we talk about fuel pricing and then the directive that the government is outlining, when I read the post on the Honorable Minister for Government Communications Facebook page, I was taken aback. I was taken aback at the point where there was a reiteration of the fact that the cancellation of fuel allowance still holds. So I asked myself that as far back as in July 2025, His Excellency, as part of the austerity measures to cut down government expenditure, announced the cancellation of fuel allowance and then fuel coupons for government appointees. Is it the case that they disregarded the directive of the President and then they are still providing allowances for themselves or probably for political appointees? But I'm not surprised, because when you look at the expenditure of the 2026 budget, even at the Office of Government Machinery, you find out an allocation of fuel allowance. And so as the President, you can't approbate and reprobate. You can't tell the people not to be providing fuel allowances for themselves, and then you, in your budget expenditure for your office, there's an allocation for fuel allowance. But this is not novel. This is not novel. When you look at the components, with your indulgence, let me read to you the components of taxes on our fuel. And Julius may have to, maybe, with guidance, tell us which of the taxes that government will be taking off our fuel. So we have the primary distribution margin, that is 26 pesos. We have the bust margin at 12 pesos. We have fuel marking margin at 9 pesos. Unified Petroleum Price Fund at 90 pesos. We have energy debt recovery levy at 49 pesos. Energy sector recovery levy at 20 pesos. Sanitation and pollution at 10 pesos. PSR levy, that is the price stabilization and recovery levy that the MPP suspended in 2021 for about 2 months, extended it to the 3rd month in 2022, and then in 2024 it was taken off just to cushion Ghanaians because of how the prices were skyrocketing in the world market. And that is also at 16 pesos. And so the total of the old levies was about 95 pesos. And we went to sleep and woke up one morning and there was a D levy. A D levy that was passed under the certificate of urgency. They submitted the bill in the morning, and then by midnight it was passed, and then awaiting the assent of the President. And that alone is 1 Ghana cedi. And so it makes the consolidated levy of about 1 cedi 95 pesos. We have the energy fund levy at 1 peso, our road fund levy at 48 pesos, and special petroleum tax at 46 pesos. all these things are not taxes that if the government suspends, it won't affect our economy. It will affect our economy, and provisions were not made for these funds. And so when government is suspending to cushion Ghanaians, I've always maintained that the NDC is on a one-ton display of populism. And so always, all the time, they may want to appear as though, they may want to communicate as though they are providing the needed help or the needed solution to the ordinary Ghanaian. But just by midnight, we woke up and then there is a D-levy of 1 Ghana cedi on every single liter that you buy. And so if Julius fills his tank for 50 liters, he pays 50 Ghana cedis in D-levy. If my brother here fills his tank at 60 liters, he pays 60 Ghana for D-levy. I don't own a car, so the fact that I drive a car doesn't mean I own a car anyway.
But you buy fuel, right?
But Julius, why?
Why?
By the special grace of God, I own a car. I fill my tank 45 liters and I pay 45 cedis for a D-levy. So if we woke up one morning and then there is a D-levy of 1 Ghana cedi, that was imposed on us by the NDC government. Then the idea was that to sustain our energy or our electricity and then the provision of power and all of that. And there is crisis that we were thinking that Ghana was immune to external shocks, Ghana was immune to external factors, as the NDC made Ghanaians believe some years ago that Russia and Ukraine was about 7,000 miles away from Ghana, and so nothing that affects Russia and Ukraine affects Ghana. But today they want us to understand or want us to believe that the US-Israel-Iran war is also having an impact on our energy prices. What levies is the government trying to take
so specifically, you want to know of all of these margins and these taxes?
If not the D-levy that they Nicodemously imposed on Ghanaians, which other levy would they want to take off? That will have a significant impact on the petrol pricing.
So if the D-levy is not taken off, you wouldn't be happy?
I wouldn't be happy. That is 1 cedi. That is a significant amount of money. And so if you buy 50 liters of fuel, you pay 50 Ghana cedis in taxes. 50 Ghana cedis.
So if you had your way, the D-levy should go.
Because if you drive, if Julius is driving from Accra to Kumasi and he fills his tank with 50 liters, he has paid a tax of 50 Ghana cedis. When he's returning another 50 liters, that is another 50 Ghana cedis. That is 100 Ghana cedis alone in taxes.
So your satisfaction...
E-levy wasn't even killing us.
So your satisfaction with these measures is hinged on D-levy?
No, but I have outlined to you and I've suggested to you that no single of the levies that is imposed on our petroleum price, apart from the UPPF, Unified Petroleum Price Fund, that is 90 pesos. All other are kind of insignificant, 26 pesos, 12 pesos, 9 pesos, 49, 20, 10, 16. And so it's just the D-levy. That is 1 Ghana cedis per liter. And that is what they Nicodemously, 16 months in office, they promised that LGBT was a matter of importance. But today they say it's of no priority. And so the matters that are leveling with the Ghanaians...
4 price issues happen to become about LGBT.
Yeah,
let me make the connection for him to understand. These were the promises we made to the ordinary Ghanaian. Never in the conversation of politics, never in the conversations of campaign, did they promise us that there will be something called D-levy. What they promised us, even for nothing at all, under not even a certificate of agency, but even an introduction, was about the bill.
What about...
But today...
Yeah, what about just waiting to see the taxes and the margins that are going to be suspended for the next...
When we suspended the price stabilization and recovery levy, just at 16 pesos, it cost the country about 170 million. About 170 million for the 3 months. But they are intending to even suspend for just about 4 weeks. It costs us about 170 million. And so which of the taxes are they suspending?
Okay, I think that's a legitimate question, because yesterday it was one of the questions that was on the minds of everybody. And we're hoping that the government spokesperson will at least give us those details, but we didn't get. We hear that the finance minister...
The cheapest on the market is Goil and then Star Oil. That is about 13.3. And so even if you are suspending the price stabilization and recovery levy that as was done in the previous government, that is 16 pesos. It brings it down to 13.14. How significant is that?
Okay,
But you Nicodemously pass a D levy and a certificate of agency that imposes a 1 cedi levy on every single letter that you buy.
But overall though, if you look at the measures that have been introduced, with the exception of the directive to ensure the strict adherence to the fuel coupon thing.
They talk about the 100 buses.
Yeah, the 100 buses.
But the 100 buses, how will it mitigate the plight of the?
Well, they said they should also reduce the fares of all public.
Who should do that?
The Transport Ministry
should reduce, and how would they even do that?
And they can do that. Metro Mass belongs to government.
So Metro Mass belongs to government, but how many Metro Mass buses are in operation?
And they are adding more.
And they're adding more, 100.
So we are not complaining about the 100 that they are adding. But how would the 100 buses that they are introducing mitigate the plight? How many buses would they allocate from Adenta to Accra? How many would they allocate for Kaswa to Kanichi? Even just the capital city in Accra, would the 100 buses be sufficient? What about our people in Obeko? What about the people in Abrim? What about people in Kwati Abua? What about people in Shuaya Mobo? What are you talking about? And so you are including 100 buses, fine. But how would that mitigate the plight of the Ghanaians? How would that mitigate?
Maybe the reduction in the taxes and the margins, of course, that will affect the general public. So for those who expecting that just a moment. So for those who have cars like you, will benefit from the reduction in the margins and taxes on the fuel prices, and for those who don't and use public transport, obviously will benefit from the reduction in the fares.
Those of us who use cars will benefit from the 16 pesos, assuming, because that is what has been done before, from the 16 pesos margin, and those in the cities will benefit from the bus. What about those in the villages?
But the buses also go to the villages.
How many? There are 100. That is what we are talking about now. The 100 is what we are talking about now.
100 is what is going to be added.
But how would that mitigate the plight?
Well, the fares are going to be reduced. So if you are traveling from here...
How is it going to mitigate the plight? For instance,
if you are traveling and you are using Metro Mass from Accra to Nkwanta, you pay about maybe 150 cedis. And if they're going to reduce it and it comes down to 130 cedis, you save 20 Ghana cedis.
But you think that the 16 pesos reduction will cost...
Who told you it's 16 pesos?
But
how did you come to that?
No, he's just assuming.
I'm assuming because that's what has been done before. That's what I'm saying, that if they don't take off the D levy, that they Nicodemously passed under certificate of agency,
nothing will be enough.
They shouldn't come and talk to us about any reduction.
Okay, let me come to Anthony now. Anthony, the questions are valid. Which taxes are you looking to remove, and which margins are you looking to reduce or suspend?
The question as to which tax or which margins should be suspended is to be determined by the finance minister and the minister for energy. What is important is what our overarching objective is: to cushion Ghanaians against the rise in energy prices due to the war in Iran as we speak. And anybody who sees that war, again, as I always say, as an opportunity to revise the economic history of the people of the Republic of Ghana, especially the most recent one under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, would be attempting to sound, if you would permit me, insulting to the face of Ghanaians. And the circumstances of today vindicate our position on all those matters. But before I proceed, I would want to indulge my brother. He, in one voice, says that these taxes you want to reduce have consequences on government revenue and the economy.
Yeah.
Then in another voice, he says that we are playing to the gallery, being populist, because government is deciding to give cushion to Ghanaians. He has a vehicle. He attempted to peddle some falsehood that he doesn't. He has always had a vehicle. And he buys fuel. If he goes to the pump and the reductions that government is about to announce are effected and he buys the fuel, will it be cosmetic when he is paying lesser than he would have paid but for the reduction?
Well, he's saying that.
So
saying that if the taxes you are reducing or removing is not significant,
how did he come to that conclusion?
Well, because at the moment you have not
precisely, because the reason is because government policy must be determined strategically with the purposes of ensuring that at every point in time your people's economic status is preserved. That is, they have good conditions of living, they are buying goods and services at a cheaper price. What did the government of Ghana do? And also, fiscal policy is to be determined in a manner to ensure that when there is windfall, you accumulate revenue. And when you have what you call economic decline, you are able to cushion. That is what they lack. Economic strategic thinking is what they lack, because we had a situation where fuel prices were going significantly down compared to what you were doing. In fact, right now, what the NDC describes as crisis that we are mitigating is cheaper than what they left. Do you know that? What we, the National Democratic Congress, 13.2. You, Derek, how much were you buying for at the time your party was leaving office? 14.7. But we are treating 13.2, which you rightly mentioned at Goel and Star Oil, as emergency. And you have the temerity to be complaining. You left for 14.7. We reduced it. It went all the way. In fact, at a point, it was going below, double digits. At a point, we had 9.9 at the pump. And we are treating 13.2 as emergency. And we are having cabinet meetings to reduce 13.2. And you who left it at 14.7 has the temerity to be complaining. What are you whining about? So let's settle that first of all. That what you think is progress, because under you, when you got to 14.7, you were saying that, oh, you brought it down, you have faced a crisis. What you think was okay for you, something that is even less, the cost that is even less, we treat it as emergency and want to reduce it for Ghanaians. You should be ashamed even attempting to even say that it is cosmetic. You should be ashamed to make that attempt. You should be very, very ashamed to do that. So let's settle that one first of all. Then the second thing, as I was saying, is that government policy choices must be strategic. When we had a windfall and petrol prices were falling significantly due to the duality of our exchange rate and the international market price of crude, petrol prices were falling significantly under administration because the dollar declined. How much did you leave it? Remind us, I have forgotten. How much did you leave the dollar? 14 point what?
But I thought you said you had forgotten.
That's why I'm asking you to remind us. I want you to remind us how much you left the dollar and how much it is today. Because of that decline from over 14 Ghana cedis to today, how much is it? 10.8 Ghana cedis. Because of that decline, the fuel prices went significantly down. What government decided to do was to be strategic for purposes of today, emergencies like wars. Government decided that we must benefit from that windfall in terms of revenue mobilization for the energy sector and be able to pay some of the debts that have accrued under your administration and successive governments. And so government decided to bring the levy. Despite that levy, the fuel prices were still less than what you left behind, Derek. Despite that, he likes to call it D-levy because of their demonic E-levy. We would accept it, we don't mind. Despite that, the prices are less than what you left. And today, despite the war in Iran, the prices are still less than what you left. And if we are to go by these facts, then one has no choice, if reason will prevail, to conclude that the circumstances that led to the skyrocketing of fuel prices and other prices of goods and services under your administration was not only because of the war. Because, Derek, let me remind you, today there is a war going on in Russia and Ukraine. The Russians are still bombing Ukraine. The Ukrainians are still flying their drones into Russia. Have you forgotten? Then, additionally, there is a war in Iran. Coalition forces of the United States and Israel attacking Iran. The famous Strait of Hormuz has been blocked by Iran. Every credible analyst, including Derek, if he would want to wear any cloak of credibility on this platform, would agree that the objective of blocking the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranians is to cause fuel prices to go up. Everybody knows this, unless you don't want reason to prevail. And that has actually happened. And it was with the objective of forcing the whole world to cause an end to the war. 25% of global crude flows through that place. So anyone who denies that a war in the Middle East, the heart of global energy, does not have economic consequences would be lying. That in itself does not mean that the crash we faced in 2022 to 2024 especially was caused solely by the war in Russia and Ukraine. Because the war is happening now. That one is happening. The war in Iran is happening. But our prices are less than yours. It is because other factors, including the dollar,
but
which we have managed better, contributes to the better economic conditions we have today. So you need to get that.
Just on the reference to the Russia-Ukraine war, we can also all agree, based on at least the report we've gathered, that the severity of the war at the time compared to now is far less.
That can be accepted.
Yes.
And if we accept that, we must juxtapose it to the situation in Iran today.
Yeah, of course.
Let me do that juxtaposition for you. Let me save the trouble. When we juxtapose it with the situation in Iran today, the war in Iran is still fresh. It's about 4 weeks old, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the 4-week-old war in Iran, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which contributes to the flow of 25% of global energy, with that condition, we still have fuel prices lesser than yours. That in itself is indicative of the fact that someone is doing something better today which was not done by you. And so you should accept those basic facts. Then we come to, I was summarizing my point on the D-levy when your questions came in. Does it make sense to you as a government, a fiscal manager, economic decision maker, that when you have windfall, you don't make any savings? A good father saves in the times of what? Abundance.
Abundance.
And in the times of crisis, he cushions his children. Learn from the ant. Or you didn't read your book of Proverbs. Learn from the ant and gather in the time of abundance. So that when there is some decline, you resort to what you have saved. That is precisely what the NDC did. We had abundance, we saved. Which makes every sense, because at the end of the day, the totality of the cost of fuel at the pump, despite our effort to save from windfall, was less than what you left, which makes every sense. If you're a good manager, that is what you do. It is only a poor manager that will decide that when there is abundance, I will not save anything. So that when there is chaos and there is crisis, I will not have anything to resort to. So what are you whining about exactly there? So government is going to take measures to ensure that the various margins we have, as we speak today, if you look at in terms of percentages on petroleum, it's about 33.39% total margins and taxes on petrol. And for margins, for purposes of clarity, margins are not like taxes. They are measures that are used to ensure distribution. So if you look at the uniform, petroleum price stabilization levy, what it does is to ensure that regardless of the distance that petroleum products are transported from, that cost, because of the distance, does not cause a disparity in the prices. That is why someone in Navrungu will buy for the same prices that someone in Tema, who is close to the port, even though by transporting from the port to Navrungu, the cost should have increased. That one makes sure that we have a uniform one. So it's not like a tax. It is to ensure that uniformity. There are various other margins. Now, if you look at the margins and the taxes in their totality, if you take petrol, 33.39%. If you take diesel, 26.9%. If you take LPG, 14.21%. What government will set out to do would not necessarily be, as he proposes, this is cancelled, this is cancelled, this is cancelled. Government is going to look at the totality of the impact of these margins and taxes on the, the pump price, and look at reducing it in a manner that ensures that despite the crisis, we will not feel the impact of the increment on the side of the global price of crude. Because I have always explained on this platform and multiple others that the contributors to the price of fuel at the pump include our regulation, which includes the margins from MPA, includes taxes, and includes the global price of crude. And because we are an import-heavy economy, we import the, the crude, the exchange rate. And we are looking at one of the factors driving up price now. The factor driving up price now is the global price of crude. If you want to balance it, it's like basic a change of subject in mathematics that we have learned. So if one of the factors is driving it up and you want to ensure that there is a balance, you effect some subtraction on the other side. This is basically what government is doing. So government is going to look at these margins and see that in proportion of the increase on the side of the global price of crude so far, how much can we deduct from the margins and taxes to ensure that we bring a certain balance so that the prices remain relatively.
But the popular one in there, the popular one in there, of course, and it's one that all the experts and even some stakeholders within that space have called for, is the D-levy. And on
why are you insisting?
No, because on the lips of everybody, and I'm sure even GPR2 has made that request. And when they met the transport minister, it's one of the requests they made. And a number of experts within the space have also, even before Cabinet went for this meeting, that conversation was on the books, and I'm sure you've been engaged on it several times. So, and that is what everybody is waiting to hear. Are we going to see the D-levy?
That is not what everybody is waiting to hear. Everybody is waiting to hear that the totality of the impact of the increase in global cost of crude will not cause them to be buying fuel at extreme prices. Explain to me, in 2 good reasons, why our conversation should be centered on a particular component of the margins and taxes on crude, on petrol, if you would indulge me. Explain to me in 2 good reasons, if you may, why the conversation should be centered on only one particular of the taxes and margins rather than the totality of the effect of what government is going to do. When I wake up and go to the pump, and it is the same for most Ghanaians, we don't go to the pump and start checking what is on it. We go to the pump and check the totality of how much we will pay at the end of the day, and whether or not we are able to afford it by reason of the basic cost. If it is 13.2 today, we want to check the totality of it. So if government decides...
But while you are checking the totality of it, there is an element in there which contributes heavily to the totality of it.
The question is...
And the D-levy, you do agree...
And I'm saying that, and you have not been able to indulge me on what... I said, explain to me in 2 good reasons. If the Ghanaian wakes up and goes to the pump, explain to me in 2 good reasons why his concern is whether or not it is the margins that have been scrapped, or it is the what you call D-levy that have been scrapped, or whether at the end of the day the prices at the pump reduce. What you call it, what you label it, and all of those things are inconsequential. What matters is the economic impact of the totality of the decision, which is why I am telling you that when every government, especially a fiscal decision maker, an economic manager sits down, what they want to do is to draw a balance between windfalls and austerity. That is what governments do. That is why when we had windfall, we brought a measure to ensure that we accumulate revenue for purposes of clearing some of our debts, for purposes of even saving for times of austerity like this. So when the period of austerity comes, what you want to be asking me is that to what extent is intervention going to be made? Not to say that I have targeted this particular tax. If I don't see it off, then nothing has been done. What we want to measure is at the end of the day, whether the prices would go lower, whether government will be cushioning the people against the war. You can't say that. What if you are saying that you want D-levy? Okay, you said you want D-levy. What if I say that I want the stabilization levy out? That if stabilization levy is not out, then nothing has been done. Shouldn't the conversation be that the totality of the decision that government will make at the end of the day, how much would it reduce the price of fuel?
No, but the significance of that element also is so you already understand why.
That is why.
But you understand why that is coming from.
The measures.
No, but you understand why that is coming from.
No,
having to do with the significance of it.
I don't.
No, but is it that you don't agree that
I don't agree.
That levy is significant in terms of contribution?
I don't agree that we should go on the path where you would say that I want this particular of the margins or the taxes out, or nothing has been done.
But do you
because if you want what you call D-levy, I say I want the stabilization levies off.
No, but
what we want to agree on at the end of the day is the totality of the effect. That the measure that government is taking.
I think that's not.
Would it reduce the prices at the pump, and would it give cushion to the people of Ghana against the hike in the global price of crude?
I think that is the ultimate.
That is the ultimate.
Yeah, that's the ultimate.
That is the ultimate.
And whether you use the route A or route B,
the outcome would justify what you have done.
But I just want to get you, and so that I can come because he's been quite very patient with us all this while. He hasn't spoken. But I just want to get you whether you appreciate why some people and some stakeholders are calling for the D-levy to be removed. You appreciate why they are making that claim.
The only appreciation I see here is a deliberate attempt to play political football and equalize and obfuscate. Because, as I keep explaining, I have said it too many times, is becoming like a broken record, that the totality of the effect on the price of fuel at the pump is what the Ghanaian will look at when he goes to the pump.
Okay, let me.
So
let me
you
come
can't
to
insist that
Dramani.
you want, because if you say you want what you call de-levy, and I say I want the stabilization levies out, who should prevail? But what should prevail at the end of the day, the fiscal decision maker, the economic manager, is to ensure that I have cushioned my people against the global crisis.
Okay,
not
great.
for us to be, but because of interruption, I didn't sum up on my last point.
Yeah,
just a minute.
Just a minute. Dramani will come in.
Then on the issue of what do you call it, buses, I think that Derek has not been following what is happening in this country. Because the reason for bringing the buses is to address what I call an indignity, and I insist on it, an indignity that the young people of this country, by reason of systemic failures, successively, have to suffer, where you see them standing at bus stops. Medina Zongo Junction especially is where you would see that unfortunate, incident mostly. What do you call it? If you come to Accra, around 37, Ridge, Shiashi, these places, in our main capital cities, even in Kumasi, that situation is beginning to arise over there. And we see a situation where the commercial private vehicles, sometimes they deliberately ration where they are going, yes, as a way of hiking up the prices and compelling our people to suffer indignity. I do not think that any government, including the one I speak for, should allow such a thing to go on. And it is one of the things I have actively spoken against, that something must be done. And I have converted myself into an activist on that particular subject matter, regardless of the fact that I speak for government. What government seeks to do is to bring the buses to deal with that problem, so that you cannot leave our young people stranded at the bus stop. If you leave them, the state, vehicles will come and pick them up. We are trying to deal with that indignity. And so when you, Derek, you hear that those buses have been brought to Ghana, and you are saying that, how will it serve someone in Shire Mobile, a training Nyansa, and all of those things you are saying? I mean, it means that you don't even understand what government policy is and what the objective of the policy is. Because if you are talking about those who are in the suburb, those who are in the outskirts of the main cities, the totality of government policy and how it will affect them is to drive down their have completely misconceived what the issues are. You don't understand what is going on.
Dramani, let's get your take on this.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity. But before I delve into the discussion, let me say a very good morning to all the people of Central Town Constituency, North Town Constituency, and South Town Constituency who are watching Joy Prime Live this morning. A very good morning to them. Bro, the Constitution of Ghana actually stipulates how this economy should be managed. So at whenever government decides to, or government takes economic decision, we must look at that decision within the constitutional ambit, what the Constitution provides. The Constitution in Article 36 specifically, Clause 1, says that the state shall take all necessary action, all necessary action to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness of every person in Ghana, and provide suitable employment and provide adequate means of livelihood and public assistance to the needy. That is what the Constitution of Ghana says. So let's look at what the cabinet of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the decision they took yesterday, whether it sits well with this constitutional provision. From an objective point of view, indeed, it sits well with what the Constitution says. Is the president and his cabinet trying to improve or secure the economic well-being of the people of Ghana? Yes. Are they trying to maximize the rate of economic development of this country? Yes. Are they trying to provide adequate means of livelihood or happiness for every person in Ghana? Yes. Within this constitutional stipulation, that is what it is. If government decides to respond to a global issue that is having a toll on the economic well-being of the people, government is not pandering to populism. That is not it. Government is not pandering to populism. Government is reacting to what is happening, and government is trying to mitigate the impact of the global fuel price increment. The impact is having on the good people of this country. Government is taking steps to mitigate it. That is not what is called populism. When my brother mentioned the word populism, something actually dawned on me. And then for the 8 years that they had the mandate of Ghanaians to steer the affairs of this country, they shrugged off concerns. So at the time we were wailing, grumbling, crying, squawking, that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through his cousin, who was then mismanaging the economy of this country, afflicted us with abject misery. So when we were crying, they thought that by going to by having a cabinet meeting like what took place yesterday, that would have meant playing to the gallery or pandering to populism. It is why I now understand why they were unable to take decisions to mitigate the impact of this. You know, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama continues to vindicate the choice the good people of this country made on 7th December 2024. He understands the demands of the 21st century leadership. His sterling leadership qualities are in sync with what the 21st century leadership demands. And that is what he's displaying. You are, I realize that you were insistent on this de-levy thing. Good. The one who has been taxed to look at the taxes that should be removed temporarily in order to mitigate the impact of the global fuel prices that is taking toll on us, is the finance minister. It is within his ken to take that decision. He understands what would give us some respite. Let's wait. If the minister comes out to announce the raft of measures or the taxes that he has removed, if that will not reflect or will not mitigate the impact that the president is taking, we can take them to task.
I mean, practically speaking.
Because it appears that we are jumping ahead of ourselves.
But we can also have expectations.
No, we can only speculate and start.
Yeah, we can have expectations.
And then doing extrapolation.
Of what.
Doing extrapolation that.
But practically, I just want to get your thoughts on this. Practically, though, Julius was just sharing with us the price of petrol and diesel this morning.
13.2.
13.2, and diesel is what, 14 point...
no, diesel is around 17.
Diesel is around 17. So let's take petrol, for instance, 13.2, all right?
It's 13.3, actually.
13.3. Practically speaking, for the measures that have been introduced and the ones that will be introduced relative to the fuel price, the margins and the taxes, how much in reduction do you think will be enough for you?
That is not within my ken.
No, for you. I'm asking you personally. It's now 13.3. How much will be enough, practically speaking?
The argument shouldn't even be reduced to that level, that what should be enough for me.
Is the extent of reduction in the country.
You understand? That shouldn't be the discussion. We shouldn't look at this from that perspective.
But bottom line, that's what it's about.
No. So if Dramani sits here and Dramani says that we want to buy fuel at 5 cedis. So if the government says...
that's unrealistic. That's a bit extreme. If you say 5 cedis, of course, it's unrealistic. You cannot act 5 cedis fuel. So we know if you are talking about...
So you are beginning to see why I am unable to say that, okay, this is what I want fuel to be, petrol selling or diesel selling. No.
But it's a question also of what will you be satisfied
I am saying that it is not within my ken to do that calculation. Those who can do that calculation, the president has tasked them to do it. We can only be speculating and doing conjecturing that perhaps the government will be doing this, will be removing this. Let's wait. We are jumping ahead of ourselves.
So you don't have any expectation whatsoever in terms of what you think will be enough, will you be satisfied with?
what I think would be enough for me.
Or what you think you'll be satisfied with?
What I want government to do that is to take a decision that will mitigate the impact of this fuel, whatever, on the masses of this country. That is it. And I believe that the government is going to take that decision. You know why? People say that the government is engaging in what they term settings. And today, that setting has transmogrified or morphed into populism. Look, if we have a populist leader who understands and is on top of issues, I prefer that populist to a demagogue. Yes, a demagogue who will not heed sound advice from experts. This is somebody who is amenable to reason, receptive to ideas. That's the kind of leadership we are going through today. Not the one that consistently shrugs off concerns and sentiment by Ghanaians. This one is a listening one. And we voted for him because he's a listening person and understands the demands of the 21st century. That's why we voted for him. And he's continuously vindicating our decision. So I asked my brother here to join us to laud this government whenever they take a decision that will inure to the benefit of the good people of this country. We praise them. You understand? Whenever they take a decision that will militate against our economic well-being, we tell them that no, this decision will have a toll on our economic well-being. If the person is doing well, let's give that person credit. Okay. So the president of this republic has demonstrated that he's like a tireless individual. Well, he just touched down. Before he even touched down, there was that announcement that they will be holding a cabinet meeting to take a decision on the skyrocketing global price of fuel. Yes, indeed, true to his word, that decision, that cabinet meeting was held. He announced a raft of measures to at least mitigate the impact of this. You see, if you are in opposition, and this is advice to my brother here, you don't try to be engaging in pettifogging like this pettifogging. Like you must necessarily oppose when there is nothing to oppose. What are you opposing? Because otherwise you come across as somebody who is insensitive. Because when you had the opportunity to steer the affairs of this country, you showed gross insensitivity, gross unresponsiveness to the good people of this country. And in opposition, you are doing the same. And you want to win the hearts and minds of the people? No. No. People can see through it. That you are just you're just trying to score cheap jack political points. That's what it is. And we must cease and desist from this kind of politicking. Okay. And do politics that advance the cause of this country and add something to the economic well-being of the good people of this country. So that as for the decision taken by cabinet, I am 100% in support of it. And I believe the good people of Central Town constituency, South Town constituency, and North Town constituency who have challenges and know that this government, because look, for the government to even take this decision to reduce or seeking to reduce some of the taxes on fuel must be lauded. You know why? This government was bequeathed a monstrous mountain of debt in the energy sector. You understand? Which actually compelled the government to bring the 1 cedi. So the 1 cedi that was slapped on us as a tax was not a decision taken in vacuum. It was predicated on sound economic management decision. Yes, that was what happened. So the 1 cedi, if you shout horse, that it should be removed, and what should be placed there? Because you left a monstrous mountain of debt. That is what this government has inherited. That is what you bequeathed them. And for them to even take this decision, it's a commendable one. Okay.
I can see some of you are also watching us on Facebook. I've seen some of your comments, Patrick Bika. And this is a caring government in that the Iran-Israel war has informed the reduction of fuel prices to cushion the lives of Ghanaians. Meanwhile, MPP used similar opportunities to rather impose taxes and fuel levies on sick and dying Ghanaians during those times. And Yeah. Julius, someone is calling you father here. I'm not sure if you have.
They call me Father Anthony.
Father Anthony. Okay.
They call me Father Anthony.
Okay. And Derek is also getting his plaudits here. Well, interesting. Derek, I'm sure you've got a few rebuttals you want to make there. And so you just do that briefly so that we can go to the Damang mine subject.
Yeah, because that's what you're actually about here.
Yeah. I mean, so we can go to that. So do that briefly, and let's go to the Damang.
So let me begin with Dramani. He's appearing more NDC than NDC people, and that is fine.
He's with a rise gun.
And that is fine. That is fine. That is fine.
But to be fair,
but let me state on record that we are not opposing the reduction in fuel prices, or we are not opposing the levies that the government may want to scrap or suspend on our fuel levies, because at the end of the day, just as I mentioned, that it does not benefit only NDC, it doesn't benefit only MPP, but we are only asking questions. On one breath, my brother Julius says that it is only a prudent manager of our economy, it's only a wise government, it's only a thinking government will know and appreciate that when there is a windfall, you accumulate, and when there is emergencies.
In times of abundance.
Yeah. Please.
In times of abundance.
Please, you see, I do this a lot, but I respected your time. My friends are even asking me that why today this is so unusual of me. Why am I so quiet and then watching them?
Yeah, we have all been quiet.
So when I was making my point, you're not quiet.
All right, there's a difference between interjection.
So the point is that, Julius, the point is that when there is an abundance, you put down measures to rake or save the nation or save money. And when there is an emergency, what do? You take out that measure. That is what we are asking. That is what he has even alluded to. That we should go to the ants, we should learn wisdom and whatever. But in your effort in learning wisdom from the ants, why are you not applying it?
We are applying.
Why are you not applying it? Because the D-levy was introduced, as you alluded to, that okay, there was abundance, there was a windfall, the petrol prices were cheaper at the time, so it was a measure for the government to accumulate some revenue, if for nothing at all, to save and also to offset some of our debts that have been accumulated successively. And so if there are times of emergency, why are we still keeping it?
We are reducing money.
No, Julius, I'm just going by your words.
And we are saying that we will not go by that particular one.
Because all those levies have been there since time immemorial. And I mentioned to us that the sustainability levy was suspended for about 3 months under the MPP government. And so suspension of levies are not new to this political architecture. But I'm only saying and suggesting to you that in your quest to save money because fuel prices were cheaper, you introduced D-levy. So why it is only right and it's only fair that you take it off when the prices are high, when there are emergency times.
But at the moment, everything is on the table. Yeah. We get an indication that everything is on the table.
So I am not even going by my words. I am sticking to the directive of my brother here.
Yes.
He mentioned that. He mentioned to us, and he has said it's live here. We can play back for about just 20 minutes, and we find his words. And he says and admonish that. Julius, please.
It doesn't mean you spend everything you have.
Yes, let him land so that we can.
You tell us and you tell the people that the prices of fuel was cheaper on the world market. That is right. It was cheaper.
No, the dollar. It's the dollar that accounted for it. You use the right metrics. The dollar.
But if we had
the dollar accounted for the reduction, use the right metrics.
If we had a dollar at 14, inflation at 23, and we're selling fuel at 14, and you have a dollar at 10, inflation at 3, and your
it went
fuel
all the way to 9.99,
and your fuel is 30.
The war in Iran.
No, until your fuel is 30. So my point is that you sat here and mentioned that the fuel prices were down, and so government introduced a measure to accumulate revenue, one to save and two to offset our debts. That has been accumulated successively since time immemorial. There have always been energy sector debt, and it became very serious when you negotiated IPPs and what have you. But we are saying that if you introduce the D-levy to save because the prices of fuel was cheaper, if you introduce D-levy because you have managed our currency and our dollar was cheaper, today fuel prices are skyrocketing. It is an emergency situation. So why don't you suspend the D-levy? It is only right.
So your demand is the D-levy?
It is only right and fair. It is only right and fair. Because going by your analogy, that was introduced because it was cheaper.
Okay.
And now it is expensive. So why do we keep that?
Okay, fair enough. Gila, just quick response so that we can get into the money.
Two things. When I used the analogy
but there is something that I wanted to say.
Okay.
Because all the time that Julius was making his argument, making his point, you see, my brother here sits as a board member for Akade Guitar Center. My brother here is a government spokesperson. Recently, he is the press secretary and the spokesperson for the Ministry of Interior. And so I can say that because the president has reiterated that they should, as a matter of urgency, do away with government allowances and do away with fuel coupons. That means they didn't even listen to the first directive. And so my brother hasn't been buying fuel. He has been enjoying fuel allowances. He has been enjoying fuel coupons. He's a government appointee. He's a government appointee.
Let's sit right there. Let me ask. No, but he's sitting right here.
But he wouldn't say because the president is the president.
No.
Hey, my friend, I'm not your friend.
My friend, let's not do that. Let's not make claims we can't substantiate.
Oh, Julius.
Yes, your producers, okay? If your producers can do me a favor, the video of Mr. Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, what do you call it? Minister of State in charge of government communication and spokesperson to the president. It's very recent. Please, do me a favor. I'm not going to do any rebuttals. Play that video with my time. Let's see something. Please, producers.
Yes, the one behind us.
The part where he spoke about the, what do you call it, fuel coupons and all of those things. Let's hear what Mr. Felix Kwakye will say. So that we will see if interprets that as
that the finance and energy ministers should take immediate steps to reduce the price of fuel through the removal of some taxes and margins on fuel, effective the next pricing window, which is about a week from today. And this is supposed to be done as soon as possible. Second, the transport minister has also been instructed to ensure the expedited deployment of newly acquired Metro Mass buses. You recall that over the weekend I announced the arrival of 100 Metro Mass buses. Another batch of 100 buses are expected in August, and then the last batch of 100 are expected in November to make up 300. But currently we have 100 available, and the Transport Minister has been instructed by Cabinet to ensure expedited deployment of these buses in high traffic corridors to ensure that it alleviates any difficulties that may have arisen out of the recent fuel price increases. The Transport Minister has also been charged with ensuring that these Metro Mass buses, in addition to the existing ones, charge or maintain transport fares which are lower than what private sector operators charge. And this is to ensure that Ghanaians are cushioned, especially when we reach peak periods at the rush hour. In addition to this, the President took the opportunity at the Cabinet meeting to remind all ministers and senior government officials and appointees to adhere strictly to his ban on fuel allowances and the allocation of fuel. And this applies to all ministers and senior government officials. Let me indicate that the reduction or removal of some taxes and margins, as I've indicated, which should lead to a reduction in fuel prices, effective the next pricing window, is supposed to last for an initial period of 4 weeks from the next pricing period.
All right, so that's the point.
But you said that was
please.
But Julius, you said that was
please.
Yes,
You said they should use that.
Yes, I just want to point to where I want the listeners to listen to. He spoke for, I just want to point to where he said. To remind all appointees to adhere strictly. Why did the interpretation that it means it was not?
So it means,
Derek, Derek. Where from the interpretation that it means, I am reminding you, adhere strictly. Where from the interpretation that it means that?
Well, someone asking, is it the case some have forgotten?
Oh, come on. If I find the need to remind you that it is enforced, because we are talking about a situation where we want to reduce the plight of the ordinary Ghanaians, we are reminding you that where from that interpretation? Where from that interpretation? And he made a very bogus assertion, if you allow me, that the office of the president had 4 allowances. Did you hear the minister? Did you hear what we said, the people it applies to? Senior government officials and what? Ministers.
I think the president is senior government official.
So the president of the Republic of Ghana should use his private money to fuel his vehicles.
But
what are you saying?
But Julius,
a directive has been given. Derek, please. Don't be dishonest. You missed it. It is okay to admit that, oh, I've misconstrued the thing, instead of looking dishonest. We said something applies to ministers of state and senior government appointees. And you are saying that the president himself is not part, so we are lying. What is this? Please, we can have this public discourse without, sheer dishonesty, without deliberate obfuscation, without deliberate distortion.
Okay, great.
We can debate the issues where there are contentions, but the pretenses that something exists where it does not exist should end. Okay. We are reminding you that the directive is still in force, strict adherence. Okay. We are talking about fuel and the price. We took the opportunity to remind people of something, then you said that it means that they were not doing. Where from that?
Let me suggest to you. Yes. Let me suggest to you that the fuel allowance allocation under the Office of Government Machinery for 2026, it hasn't been there since 2022. So are you telling me that President
it hasn't been there?
It hasn't been part of budget expenditure for government since 2022.
My friend,
is it a case that
is it suggested that President Kufuor was using his private resources to run government machinery?
When I talk about populism, when I talk about settings, when I talk about these things, this is what I mean.
Is that what you are suggesting?
We have the Osu Castle.
Is that what you are suggesting?
We've been in government before. We have the Osu Castle. That there is a Gulf War pump there where ministers of state and appointees go there to fill their tanks.
Osu Castle Nuguana.
That's where they go to fill their tanks.
We should break down the castle because
if they are not distributing Gulf War, they go there to fill their tanks. And I'm suggesting to you that Julius is a board member, Julius is a government spokesperson, goes there to fill his tanks.
We should break down the
Osu Castle. To fill his tanks.
Now, let me just take some of your comments.
You have any evidence of that?
Yesterday we were at Obra Sport.
We should collapse the castle
in the course of the day. All right, Julius, it's okay. I'm sure in the course of the day we're going to be at Obra Sport at Circle and get to hear from people what they make of this. The politicians are sharing their views about it. What do you make of it? How do you feel about the move government is seeking to roll out about fuel prices? Do send us your comment. Our WhatsApp line is there and our Facebook page is also very active. Let's go to the Damang now. It was in the course of the week that the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources did release a statement indicating that the Tender Review Committee has finally brought their recommendation, and they've recommended that EMP, the firm owned by Ibrahim Mahama, should be given the lease for the Damang mine. And in fact, they did explain the criteria that they went through to arrive at the choice of EMP, and also they indicated about 4 other companies expressed interest in it. And there were some mandatory requirements, which included providing your SNIT certificates, your tax clearance certificates, and a few other things. And for the 4 companies, at least 2 of them could not satisfy these mandatory requirements. And so it was left with Heath Goldfields and EMP. And the other 2 criteria had to do with an assessment of their technical expertise. Then they will look at their financials. After an assessment of their technical expertise, they realized that, well, Heath Goldfields does not meet the criteria based on the score that they had. They could not get more than 80%, which gave any other company that scores 80%, 80+% gets to go to the next stage. They could not score that. They could not make it up to 80, so they were, taken out of the bid. And EMP scored 93+, and eventually they were given the lease. Okay, but there's been some reaction, some argument about conflict of interest because it's the president's brother, and there's been some also back and forth about that he's got the competence. He's a Ghanaian who is going to own the mine, so why not support it? In fact, former Chief Justice of the country, Sophia Akufu, support that whether it is whoever it is, as long as he's a Ghanaian, she supports it. Fundamental. And let me start with you, Dramani, on this matter. A Ghanaian who has run the company for over 20 years, he's been working, engaged in mining operations with even company before they decided to leave. But there has also been questions about the time period that the tender was done, 7 days period, when it could have been more. It could have been even much more, maybe 40 or maybe 2 months, so that they can do an extensive work And there are also questions about the fact that he's the brother of the president, and if, in terms of the optics, this is good for governance. What do you make of this? What does Arise Ghana make of this?
Thank you very much. Where I sit, in fact, when it was announced that EMP won the bid to now take over Damang mines, I was actually on cloud 9. As a Pan-Africanist to the core, that is what we want to see. We want our companies, indigenous companies, to be involved in such ventures. So when engineers and planners won the bid, I was excited. Yes. People have raised issues, particularly issues emanating from the opposition about the propriety of the process. And throughout the quibbling and then again the pettifogging, I have not come across any sound suggestion from them. It is about people who have immersed themselves in the crab culture. You know what? You know crab. I don't know. We call it in agala. Correct. You know, is that? Akoto. What? Koto. That is crab. So they decided to immerse themselves to demonstrate the crab culture, which is, look, I will not allow you to go up, so I will bring you down. That is what is it. And you see, the crab culture, when you see that in a society, when society demonstrates, or a group of people demonstrates the crab culture, it means that that group or society has that stubborn streak of envy. And it must be deprecated or deplored by all right-thinking persons in this country. Was the process circumvented for engineers and planners? Was there any procedural flaw in the process? Nobody has raised that. They are talking about timing and the duration. Is there any law regulating the duration? No. He won the bid fair and squarely. You are talking about conflict of interest. The owner of engineers and planners, is he a member of government? I'm asking you, is he a member of government? He's not a member of government. Is his brother that is the president of the republic, so that should stop his business from taking part in that bid or tender? No. That is not the kind of society we want to build. We want to build a meritocratic society, and that is what has been demonstrated there. Those who oppose this thing, they have raised something. They kind of tried vainly to use, when we demonstrated against the intended sale of those SNIT hotels to Rock City. You remember? Yeah. Correct. I was actively involved in that demonstration with the Honorable Okujeto. Even the press conference that which preceded the demonstration, I had opportunity to speak at that press conference. What we talked about that time was that there was a conflict of interest. Indeed, there was a conflict of interest because the owner of Rock City was at the time Minister of State. And the Constitution is clear. Article 78, Clause 3 said that a minister shall not hold any other office of profit or emolument, whether public or private, and whether directly or indirectly, unless otherwise permitted by the Speaker, acting on the recommendations of Committee of Parliament. A, that the conflict of interest, no conflict of interest will arise as a result of the minister holding that office, or there will be no prejudice. That is what the Constitution of Ghana says, Article 78, Clause 3, which barred the minister and his company from engaging in that kind of deal. So indeed, when we opposed that thing, our opposition to the intended sale of those Senate hotels to Rock City was predicated firmly on law and the Constitution of Ghana. But in this case, the gentleman who owns Engineers and Planners is not a member of government. He's a businessman with sterling expertise in that field. And he has won this just because his brother is a president, so he shouldn't be given the opportunity to own that mine or to bid. No, that crap culture must be deplored. It must be deplored. He won the bid fair and squarely. And I am even praying that maybe some of these foreign ones who have been repatriating whatever to their countries, I just pray that when some of them start getting moribund, the engineers and planners should bid. We want indigenous companies to own or to be in the extractive sector. That is it. I'm even sure that given or considering the expertise and the track record of engineers and planners, if this thing had taken place even under the demagogue and Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, I don't think Akufo-Addo would have even taken any decision that engineers and planners shouldn't be given that thing. Even Akufo-Addo would have endorsed it.
But would you have been comfortable if it was Akufo-Addo's brother taking up the mine at the time?
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. I am saying to you that as a Pan-Africanist, as a nationalist, a patriot, we want the extractive sector. We want our people there. We want indigenous companies to venture into that sector of our economy. So if, say, Mr. Gabi Asari-Tridaku or lawyer Nana Asante Bedietu decided or had a company with the kind of status that engineers and planners have, and they bidded for something like this and they were given no qualms.
Okay, but just progressively though, we are familiar with the state of the community, Damang in itself. To think that a community that has such huge resource, such valuable resource, and then you look at their state, state of their roads, the state of the people there, the state of the young people there. All right, over the years they've been mining, and it's just like, it's almost, that's what sometimes people describe as a curse of a sort. You go to Obuasi, it's almost the same.
Yes.
So much gold from the community.
Thank you.
The lives of the people are not being directly affected. The roads are still bad, the schools are still bad. What are your expectations of EMP relative to how they are going to also improve the community?
Very good. I am sanguine or optimistic that EMP would definitely demonstrate his proverbial generosity there by doing stuff that will inure to the economic well-being of the people there. You just mark it there. You'll be seeing some actions in that regard. That the EMP would definitely show some level of difference between the erstwhile owners of that place and his company EMP. Definitely. Because the gentleman who owns EMP is somebody who demonstrates instinctive generosity. So definitely it will reflect on the lives of the people in that area. You just mark it there.
Okay, great.
And it's the more reason why some of us, we pray fervently that our indigenous companies should have the metal that EMP has to be able to venture into that field. They will definitely do things that will inure to the economic well-being of the people in those areas.
Okay, Julius, let me just come to you. And I want you to address if it is something that you've been concerned about. I mean, just on the face of it, and we've had people make those arguments, and I want you to respond to it. The man who has won this bid is the same person. It's not just the brother of the president, okay? The president is equally using his resource, having to do with this private jet. And people are now raising suspicions that isn't this why they claim there's a certain conflict of interest? Because someone who is interested in a state asset is at the same time helping the president, who is his brother. I mean, I'm sure this has come to your table. What's your response to people who have concerns in that regard?
When Goldfields indicated to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources that they were exiting the shores of Ghana, please, did you read their communication to the minister and what they stated? That they have worked for years with engineers and planners, and that they recommend engineers and planners because they have the technical capacity. At the time that letter was written, who was president? Oh, you can answer.
I mean, that was in 2024. Obviously,
who was president?
Correct.
How did opposition leader John Dramani Mahama influence Goldfields to recommend engineers and planners that is owned by his brother?
We know Goldfields.
The Goldfields, were they flying in EMP's
Dzata.
the Dzata jet, you know, Ibrahim Mohammed's jet? Were they flying in it? What did the jet influence that recommendation as well? So what are we really talking about? This is a company that for the past 20 years or even more has developed technical and operational capacity in large-scale mining, earth moving. And in all of these periods, there has governments came and governments went. In fact, his brother became president on July the 24th, 2012. Later, January the 7th of 2013, lost the presidency in January the 7th, 2017, when Akufo-Addo became president. In all of those periods, engineers and planners continued to be one of the most potent mining companies in this country. Indeed, during President Akufo-Addo, they were the operational engine behind Goldfields. In all of those times, who was flying in whose jet? So when we say that the recommendations that have been made in reference to engineers and planners is influenced by a private jet, I want you to show me images of the Goldfields, you know, managers and owners flying in jet, because they also made a recommendation of engineers and planners. Did the private jet influence them too? Then away from that, if you read Section 5 of our Minerals and Mining Act and all the accompanying regulations, what you would notice is that the Minister of State in charge of Lands and Natural Resources has been given unfettered rights to give mineral rights, to revoke and suspend. And in all of those authority that is vested in the minister, there is no requirement anywhere for the minister to actually even make open competitive bid. The minister could literally sit down with his technical staff, look at those who have shown interest and decide we'll give it to these people. Or the minister could just receive an offer from someone who is interested in mining in our country and just give it to that person. But because of claims like this, there was an open competitive bid where all the players in the sector who have shown interest decided to put up that bid. And objective assessments came to the conclusion that engineers and planners was the most potent. So far, do you know that no element of the New Patriotic Party, in fact, Satan himself, if he were a member of the NPP, would be able to say that engineers and planners lacked capacity? They won't. They won't dare. Because the facts and the history, the records, will make stupidity out of any such claim. So they wouldn't. All they are saying is allusions to influence of jet and all of those things, really. That's why I'm asking you, that when Goldfields was making their recommendation, were they also flying in the Dzata jet? If we want to have a conversation on One, the security of the president, flying in a private jet. The apparent conflict of interest, because if you make a case of apparent conflict of interest, reasonability requires that you subject the apparent conflict of interest to reality checks, to test for actual conflict of interest. That's what reasonability requires. When you see something apparent, that's on the face of it. Reasonability requires that you make a test for the real. That is why even in legal parlance, he is a law student now. When a prima facie determination is made, it's because apparently on the face of it, it looks like it. Reasonability requires that you do the actual test. He should tell us if he is able, now, here and now, to subject their so-called apparent conflict of interest. And for me, I have always said that we should bring some honesty to public discourse. I am willing to concede to them on the apparent nature of it. Because if someone comes to Ghana, doesn't know engineers and planners, doesn't know their technical capacity and all of those things, and he sees apparently what will the person see, I'm willing to concede to them on that. But let's progress to the next stage where reasonability requires that you subject the apparent matter to an actual test.
Okay.
Would he be able to tell us that they have been able to establish any case of actual conflict of interest in this matter? Will he be able to tell us that engineers and planners does not lack capacity, or they were not in existence, and then they just showed up, and then because he's the the president's brother, they gave something to him? They will not be able to, and they have attempted strenuously to link this issue to the former Agric minister and field presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Brian Echampon's attempt to acquire SNIT assets. They have attempted rather strenuously to link it to Mr. Ken Ofori-Attah's insurance company. Remind me of the name. No, not Data Enterprise Insurance. Taking over all state insurance gigs, all over. They have attempted strenuously to link it to that. Engineers and planners, even if we would apply our basic knowledge in company law and the separate legal entity concept, we could even separate it from Mr. Ibrahim Mahama. But I will not do that, because I always say that when we are looking at things from legal formalities, we may want to also look at realities. I will not do that. I will not do that separation. I would attach him to it and still proceed. Engineers and planners and its owner, Mr. Ibrahim Mahama. Is Mr. Ibrahim Mahama running the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and at the same time giving mining rights to himself? What Ken Ofori-Attah was doing was running the finance ministry and at the same time giving government gigs to himself, including taking those that were already in the hands of SIC without demonstrating any basis for taking them from SIC. You have a state insurance company that insures some of the activities that government institutions undertake. Without justifiable basis, suddenly there has been instructions to move them to your private entity. As finance minister, you have the temerity to compare this to engineers and planners, a private company that has been awarded a mining right by a minister of lands and natural resources called Amabua.
Yeah, but
not Ibrahim Mahama, as is the case with Ofori-Attah. Are you serious about that? Even frontline health workers during the COVID crisis, Ken Ofori-Attah's company was given that when SIC was there. In fact, SIC almost became defunct because of what they were doing. Even as of today, when SIGA gave a directive, the state-owned enterprises should ensure all their assets and whichever circumstance or insurance may be needed. With SIC, they are fighting it. They are fighting it. Why should the state insurance company collapse because Mr. Ken Ofori-Attah became finance minister? Those were the questions we were asking. And my brother, Mr. Dramado, has done an excellent work in drawing the dichotomy between the Damang mine issue and the issue involving Mr. Doctor. I've almost committed. And Dr. Brian Echampon's. Dr. Brian Echampon's was at the time Minister of State in charge of Agric. A state entity, Minister of State, sits at cabinet. Yeah. These decisions would appear at cabinet. Maybe then the minister himself. His attempt, and they were making a case of the SNIT assets not being profitable. when there was an evidence of them actually, some of them being profitable, and the need for managerial changes to be made to get the others to be profitable, then he was trying to use it as an opportunity to acquire it for himself. You are comparing this to a situation where somebody has always been working in that particular mine. It's not as if President Mahama became president and then EMP's, equipments moved to Damang. They've been at Damang when President Mahama was opposition leader. As opposition leader, with all due respect and deference to the president, he was like all of us.
Sure.
By what stretch of imagination can someone say that it was by his influence and influence of a certain... So when we are doing these things, trying to play football with everything, a situation where a Ghanaian company that has been excellent, engineers and planners, they don't only work in Ghana. In Liberia, they work with the largest steel company anywhere in the world. Nobody has ever attempted to do it. So when we want to talk about the president flying on Mr. Ibrahim Mahama's private jet, I am willing to have that conversation with all the honesty that is required to admit apparent nature of conflict, to admit that there may be serious security concerns which must be answered by the presidency, that there must be serious concerns about cost and how it is being shared, which must be answered, which my boss, the Minister of State in charge of government communication, has answered over the period. We can have that conversation separately. But if there is any attempt to link that jet to the acquisition of the Damang mine, it would not only be preposterous, it would demonstrate a complete lack of reason and complete dishonesty, which should not inform public discourse. Okay. I would end on that.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come to you, Derek, to have your bites on this, and then we'll be wrapping up. We have a lot more coming up on the AM, on Prime Morning. I beg your pardon. On Prime Morning. Oh my goodness. Anyway. I just want to, I've seen a few of your comments on Facebook, and there are some also on WhatsApp. Okay, I'm sure it's going to come on the screen there very shortly. I'll read some of them, then I'll come to Derek, who has been patiently waiting for his turn. This one says, okay, some people are fighting under the comment section, so I think I'll leave you guys there. Apologies for that. Okay, all right, some comments coming through here. It says, good morning, please let the NDC man say all that he's saying, to tell us that using jets can't influence the decision for the mining. Didn't the same Mahama give Ghana bauxite after losing the election and the case was sent to courts and Ibrahim Mahama lost in courts? Now they are back to give our minerals to Ibrahim Mahama. He said Formula 133 is now 419, he says. This one says, good morning. My problem is, why do you always bring two NDC panelists to your show? The man they read is Arise Ghana. Arise Ghana.
Okay.
All right?
Arise Ghana is a subset of NDC.
You know, 2 weeks ago, I was accusing him of being MPP. Yeah. I also believe he's MPP. You know.
Arise Ghana is here, okay? Is a pressure group. Okay, he said, and you say you need someone's number. He said, okay, Derek, he said he needs your number. So, if you can come to multimedia, you can come and wait at the front desk. You can get his number because,
there are a lot of people waiting for him there. He's a big man.
Okay. Gasti from Bekum says, I sometimes wonder how people get so arrogant when they're in power. If the NDC's benchmark is just the previous government and performance, instead of doing what they promised Ghanaians, then they should quit. The NDC is just preaching as if they are on a campaign train, he says. This one says, Dear Razak, the plain truth is that the Mahama's government is more sensitive and listening than Akufo-Addo's government. Akufo-Addo's government was reckless. Napo told us to draw our own timetable when there was an energy crisis. Where I think Mahama is failing is in the fight against Galamsey menace because NDC members are involved in the Galamsey. Good morning. Charles Achampon there. This one, Master Planner Jr. says, when President Mahama went to cabinet meeting to reduce the cocoa prices, it immediately took effect. Why is this one going to take the finance minister, energy minister to go and discuss before it is taken off? And he says, interesting. Wow. Okay. This one says, the NDC and late President Mahama seem to be attempting to divert attention from current issues such as LGBT and Galamsey. In the past, Mahama stated that the global conflict wouldn't impact Ghana's economy while in opposition, but now the narrative is different. Okay. This one says, I pity the NDC can rant the more, but we, the citizens, are feeling the heat. Okay, we, the citizens, are feeling the heat, he says. It says, is Mr. Dramado really standing up for Arise Ghana? Because from what he's saying about the Damang mining lease, there's nothing impressive or convincing to take away. Okay. Okay. Akonsi Gariba. Maybe let me just take this, then I'll come to Derek and we can wrap it up. The NDC and their sympathizers are dishonest to the people of Ghana because they said that the external factors had no effect on the Ghanaian economy during the President Nado's government. May I know what has changed? As of December 2024, a litre of petrol was 14 cedis, 35 pesos, and diesel was 15 cedis, 45 pesos per litre. As of 2026, the fuel price per litre is 17 cedis, you mean diesel in Ghana, and it's unfortunate the Ghanaians are well less now than before. Okay. Please, Doomsor levy should be taken off, and our brothers and sisters who have been working for 14, 15 months, not been paid, and can't even buy common bathing soap. Really? Okay. All right. I think I'll leave it there on the messages. Let me come to you, Derek. Yes.
The issue of the Damang mines, let me state it on record that the MPP that I represent or that I speak for is not opposing to the fact that local companies are handling especially our extractive sector. And so let's have that on record, that we are not opposing that a Ghanaian business or a Ghanaian entity is handling a very crucial sector of the economy, especially like the extractive sector, the mining sector. Yeah. Because if for nothing at all, the foreigners will come in and they will repatriate our mineral resources into their country. And so if we have a Ghanaian who is handling such a sector, it is something that we all will support. But you see, Julius mentioned that I'm a law student, and of course, he would definitely be my senior at the bar. And so with his experience at the law school, I come to believe that he will appreciate certain conversations that we may want to have about these diamond mines. Why do I say so? Even when you go to court, substantively you may have a case, but if the procedure is challenging, if there is an impropriety around the procedure, the court can throw your matter out on the basis of fair trial, on the principles of legality. The court can throw your matter out. And so substantively, we are not opposed to the fact that a Ghanaian-owned company is handling our extractive sector. This is something that we are not opposing. But let's look at the procedure. Let's look at the surrounding circumstances that causes us to believe that this is a state capture that smacks conflict of interest. And that has been our argument, and that has been our point. Yeah. Why do I say this? In 2024, Goldfields wrote that they may want to decommission the mines, and so they wrote to government that, okay, they may want to leave the Damang mines. And so it becomes on government that they may, or any other person who shows interest, would engage the Goldfields, and then they'll come to the ministry or the government for the necessary steps to be taken so that they become the owners of the Damang mines. So Goldfields wrote that engineers and planners showed interest in the Damang mines because, of course, for about 20 years, they had been handling the operationalization of the mines. And so nobody is talking about their capacity. Their capacity is not in contention. We all allude to the fact that they have the capacity. But let's ask ourselves that engineers and planners that showed interest in the Damang mines when Goldfields announced that they were leaving, of course, wrote to the ministry, and the ministry said that we do not have any qualms or any argument about you wanting to possess the Damang mine, because in any case, Goldfields had indicated that they may want to leave. And so there was a no objection letter released to them. No objection letter is not a lease. Of course. No objection letter has a longevity of a year. And so the no objection letter expired in March 2025. But isn't it surprising that Goldfields, that was engaging engineers and planners for the takeover of the Damang mines, wrote in December 2024 that they want a renewal of their lease? Is it the case that they discovered that engineers and planners was not having the capacity or was not having the strength to take over from them. No, I am saying that
how do they establish capacity?
Apparently, when you look at engineers and planners and what they have been engaged in, no one comes to any other conclusion except for the fact that they have the capacity. But we are only asking questions that why is it that Goldfields Ghana that wrote in March 2024 that they do not want a renewal of their lease and then they want to decommission the Damang mines, right again in December that they want a renewal of their lease.
And your suspicion is what?
That is the question that we are asking.
But how is that relevant?
Julius, I'm making my point. If you would indulge me, I'm making my case. They wrote for a renewal of their license, and of course, government was voted out of power. The NDC came, they rejected their renewal. There was controversy, and then in March 2025, His Excellency the President, John Dramani Mahama, gave them a 1-year license renewal, and that is how come 2026 we are still talking about the Damang mines and then engineers and planners and then Goldfields. But my brother, the problem we have is that, you see, when you read Article 268, it tells us that all our mineral resources are vested in the president. He is holding the mineral resources in trust and on behalf of the Ghanaian person. The Honorable Minister Kofi Amabua acts on the instructions of the president. Let's establish that, because it is the president who has delegated his mandate to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. So let's not also take that factor away from it. But we may want to ask ourselves, when we were talking about the fuel conversation, my brother posed the question at me that am I expecting that the president finance his convoy with his private money? And the answer is no. We are not expecting that, because Article 68 Clause 5 even exempts the president from paying taxes. Right. So why is Ibrahim Mahama, a private person, a private businessman, offering to pay for the travel expenses for the president? Why? What is his interest? That he is offering to pay for the travel expenses for the president. When the president visited South Korea, whenever you park a private jet, every 30 minutes after the 3 hours free period, you pay for parking fee. When you are landing in South Korea, you pay for noise, you pay for lighting, you pay for parking, you pay for every other expense that needs to be paid for. So what is the interest in Ibrahim Mahama, who is the owner of engineers and planners? What is his interest?
Maybe he just wants to help them.
What is his interest? As a business person, is it a CSR? You should come out and let us understand that that is a CSR. Because you see, the code of conduct that President Mahama launched for his appointees mandates them to declare a gift or to not receive a gift that exceeds about $2,000. And so, what is the interest of Ibrahim Mahama in wanting to pay for the travel expenses for President John Dramani Mahama? Let's not even have the conversation of he being his brother. Because if it comes to the conversation of he being his brother, we would have no other conclusion to make than to agree to the fact that the president deliberately has willed our mineral resources to his brother. So let's not even go on that tangent. But we are asking that, what is the interest of Ibrahim Mahama as a private businessman wanting to cater for the cost of somebody who the state has even exempted him from paying taxes? Just on Saturday, when the president was at Kowu, he said that they'll be paying contractors, and contractors will be paying their wives, they'll be paying their girlfriends, their side chicks, and when they pay their side chicks, the money trickle down and all of that. And so, even when President Mahama wants to have a side chick, the state will cater for it.
No, what preposterous assertions? You see, when you are flowing, nobody interrupts you. But when you say things as preposterous as this, there'll be the need for it.
I made a condition. I said when. I said when.
No, but you know,
I want preposterous assertions.
If you would allow me,
the Supreme Court even ruled that the First Lady of the Republic is not entitled to any emolument from the state.
To be fair.
So where from the
Julius,
in Abonye, you are familiar with Abonye.
No, if you indulge me,
no, don't be making.
I am making the claim that
when you are on the issues, nobody interrupted you.
Derek, the point is that yes, the Constitution enjoins the states to take care of all expenses of the president, and I think you can use any example to represent the expenses of the president, but it's very uncomfortable if you get into that space.
No, but
you do understand.
I get it.
And I get it.
Especially in our society.
Yeah, just a moment.
In our society.
No, a second. And I believe that
You can
make your point without that reference. So just continue. Just land. We need to be.
Yes.
Just land for me.
With whatever expenses the president may want to indulge in, the state caters for it.
Yeah.
Because he needs to be comfortable to take care of us. And so, what is the interest of Ibrahim Mahama in wanting to afford the travels of the president? These are not private holidays. These are not travels that he's on leave and then he may want to travel, and so maybe he may want to bear the cost, and then as a brother or as a businessman, you may want to offer. But we're asking that what is the interest of Ibrahim Mahama in driving the president around in the official car?
Is this question arising because he's not been given the Damang mine?
We're asking questions because look, if you have a tender of an asset that is costing over 15 billion Ghana cedis, and the tender was open for 7 days, the companies that bidded was expected to have a financial guarantee of $500 to $600 million in 7 days. In 7 days. These are questions that we ask.
Yeah, but if you
the committee sat to review, the documents, and they did so after the closure of tender of 31st March. And in that 7 days, there were 2 holidays, 2 weekend days. 2 holidays, 2 weekend days. And so we are asking questions. The minister is acting on the authority of the president. Our mineral resources are vested in the president to handle and to cater for it on behalf of the Ghanaian person. And so we are only asking questions that...
But just land.
We are only asking questions. When you look at the tender document, for instance, in the local content, that is in page 9, they tell us that if you are bidding for the Damang mines, the company should be a company that already has an engagement with the local community. It is public knowledge that EMP handles the operationalization of gold fields in the Damang mines. And so when you put such a requirement in there, what are you not disenfranchising the other competitors? Are you not preventing the other competitors? And so that is why we are asking questions based on Article 284. The Shraj has indicated to us that when it comes to matters of conflict of interest, there is an actual conflict of interest. There is a perceived conflict of interest. And there is a potential conflict of interest. And that is why we are asking. We are asking that engineers and planners substantively they qualify, and then we are happy that as a Ghanaian company you'll be handling our resources. If for nothing at all, you will repatriate the profit into a different country. But we are asking that was the procedure right and fair?
Okay, very profound. I think it's just been prompted that we need to make way for another conversation. So I think 30 seconds. Yeah. Okay, 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds that we go. So, Julius, 30 seconds.
I would just sum up by asking these questions. Derek went on and on about has the procedures been followed, but he fell short of telling us what procedures in law were required to be followed, which were not followed. What are the procedures? I have referenced you to Section 5 of the Minerals and Mining Laws. I have told you, if you look at all the regulations, none of them requires the minister to even make an open competitive bidding. All of that was done. Which procedure was not followed?
Okay.
And then an argument is made that a no objection letter is not a, what do you call it, a lease. Agreed. But what does the no objection letter signify? That even the former minister in substance did not object to engineers and planners acquiring the Damang mine or their bid to do so. So whether it expired before NDC came into power or it didn't expire, it's immaterial when it comes to the competence or capability of engineers and planners.
Okay.
So you have been unable to outline any procedure which you propose. So if it's your turn, please, respectfully, propose a procedure for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My brother Derek sounded so evangelical about their opposition.
I'm a pastor, you know.
Yeah, he sounded so evangelical. So under this air condition, sweating profusely, and that tells you how passionately he feels about it. How passionately he feels about this matter. As a law student, he's a law student, I understand. He must go to the court if indeed some procedures have been circumvented in favor of engineers and planners. And I believe that if he proceeds on that legal path, he will just be a principal will just be there for waiting for him. That is de minimis non curatulus. The court does not concern itself with trifles. Or aquila non capit muscas. The eagle does not catch flies. That is what the court
I think we should end on that note.
Derek.
Derek, let's wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, in wrapping up, I have always held that we need to be principled in this country. If it was wrong for Dr. Brian Champon, if it was wrong for Kenneth Oriata, it should be wrong for EMP.
Sure.
But I leave us with the scripture, Psalm 26 verse 4. Do not sit with deceitful men, nor do I consort with hypocrites. Hypocrisy is a problem of our
Charlie, check that in.
The last person who was quoting Bible collapsed this country and is now hiding in the United States. I am worried.
Psalm 26 verse 4. Do not sit with deceitful men,
I am very worried
nor do not consort with hypocrites.
I'm worried that when
Hypocrisy is our problem.
Julius,
And as
thank
young
you.
people,
You know what is happening?
Derek, thank you very much.
Hypocrisy written
And also, thank you very much for watching.